Story 1. From an old boss. Why take any criticism from someone you would not take any advice from? We worked in the hospitality industry, and it helped a lot to realize that you should not be worried about what 99.99% of the population say or think about you. Story 2. The best advice I got was, don't wait for the perfect moment. Just go for it. Life rarely lines up perfectly, so if you keep waiting for the right time, you'll miss out on a lot. Sometimes you just have to take the leap, even if things aren't 100% ready. Story 3. They don't respect themselves. How can you expect them to respect you? Advice from a wise old taxi driver that helped me after too long a period of caring about the opinions and thoughts of some pretty unpleasant people and letting it affect my self-worth too much. It really helped me move on and leave those bad people in the past. Story 4. This too shall pass has carried me through a lot of situations. If you are dreading something tomorrow, just know that a few days from now tomorrow will just be a memory. Story 5. Every single time I thought my life was going to end over something when I was younger, my mother would make me go in the bathroom and stare at the mirror. She always made me look at myself in the eyes and tell myself that I am stronger than I feel and I am going to survive this no matter how terrible it feels now. I will be stronger after this. I know it sounds cringy, but even though she passed 4 years ago, I still do it. My son was 20 years old when he passed away, and I wanted to die. I wanted to disappear off the face of the planet. After a week of barely any food and a swollen face and eyes that looked like someone punched me, I stood up and walked into the bathroom. That was 3 years ago. I am still here and I will make it. I am stronger for having gone through this. I can be of help to others even though I can't help myself right now. I hope some of you try this. It's not for everybody, but for those of us that are introverts and deal with things on our own, it matters. Story 6. The ant problem. If you're having a picnic and get things all set up ready to enjoy it with your family, you might see a couple of ants. 1 or 2 isn't an issue and you can largely ignore them. 10 or 15 is a nuisance, but if you remove them, they stay manageable. It's when an army of ants invades your picnic that it's ruined. Problems in your life are the same way. Got 1 or 2 little problems. That's just life and it's fine. Got a handful of them? That will build up a little stress, but if you take care of them, you'll be just fine. It's when you let dozens of little problems build up that they take over your life and ruin your picnic. Manage the small problems quickly and as they come. Story 7. That very 0.1% progress is still progress. It really gives me the motivation to continue, even with the little progress I make. I am really thankful for that person. Story 8. Something my therapist said to me, "You're a weird guy, and that's okay. You're allowed to be weird." It was very freeing. There is no normal police out there who is going to arrest me if I don't fit in 100%. Story 9. From my wife's granddad, along with his wife, the 2 kindest, most amazing people you could ever wish to meet. To have them in my life was a real honor. Sadly, both have now passed. Don't marry the person you can live with. Marry the person you can't live without. Story 10. This is my own saying, but there are really 2 types of problems. Ones that money can solve and ones that time can solve. Knowing the difference is most of the answer. Story 11. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Lucky people spend a lot of time and effort on being lucky. When I was a junior soldier, I had a mentor who told me to always have the ability, personally, financially, and professionally, to drop everything and go somewhere at a moment's notice. Back then, the Army ran thousands of schools in local training areas in Europe. I was stationed in West Germany. On any given Monday, there were dozens of training courses starting that lasted between a week and a year. Many of the slots in those schools were issued to units on a use or lose basis. If you got 10 slots this year and only used 9, next year you got 8. Because of this, just about every Friday, there was a training manager scrambling to fill a school quota with a live body. I became that live body. Being tan, rested, and ready meant I got to do a ton of stuff that my peers didn't. Those schools helped give me positive attention, which helped get me promoted, which gave me more opportunities. Years later, I was the training manager, and I had a list of people I knew I could send anywhere. That made me a successful training manager, and I got more good things from that. Decades later, I retired and transitioned to the civilian world. I rolled into a comfortable post-retirement job that paid well and was ultra easy, except I hated my micromanaging boss. At the end of the first week, I was questioning my own judgment in taking the job. At the 5-week mark, I came home on a Friday and told my significant other I wasn't doing anything until I applied for 10 jobs. I managed 7. While I was in the middle of number 7, LinkedIn told me that the recruiter for job number 3 was online and asked if I wanted to chat. I did. We chatted for about 15 minutes and set up a call for the next day. We talked for 45 minutes that Saturday. That Thursday, I left work early for an appointment and interviewed. 20 minutes after the interview was over, the recruiter called me and offered me the position. A 50% raise, my own team, hiring authority for my team, and a boss who considers it a good week if we don't even see each other except in passing. Luck? I found out that I crushed the interview for the job so much they decided I was overqualified and moved me to a management position they needed to fill too. What sealed it for them was my knowledge of 2 very specific things, knowledge which was unusual for someone from a military background. How did I know those things? Because I had done a corporate fellowship as part of my transition. The fellowship was with a consulting company. I was not interested in consulting, but they were the only people I matched with during internship Tinder. We were not a great fit, and I was not offered a position with them at the end of my fellowship. But during the fellowship, they had me work on 2 projects that forced me to learn the ins and outs of the areas that I would later highlight in my interview. Preparation met opportunity. Story 12. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to it. This one really changed how I handle setbacks. Now I focus on what I can do, not what I can't. Story 13. There are really only 2 things you can control in your life: your attitude and your effort. If you are stuck in a situation in life, there are only 3 things you can do about it. Work to change it, accept it, or leave it. Sitting around and endlessly complaining about it is just a waste of everyone's time, including yours. Story 14. Stop saying sorry when you've done nothing wrong. I had a homeless person approach me when I was a young adult, asking if I had any recyclables. I told him no and said I'm sorry. And that's when he gave me the advice: you don't need to say sorry, man. You didn't do anything wrong. This small interaction led me to stop being a pushover and always apologizing for everything. I'll apologize only when it's warranted now, instead of just trying to please everyone. Story 15. Pride can take a back seat once in a while, especially when you can't wipe your own bottom. Told to me and my cousins when we were around 10 to 12 just after my granddad's funeral. We thought our uncle was trying to make us laugh. This came from a guy that was in an upper body cast, both arms cast, and his chest. We just thought he was being funny. Little did I know that bit of advice saved my life after being run over by a car and having my left leg broken in 12 places, right knee shattered, left shoulder broken, and a few other things. It's amazing how fast your pride can take a back seat, and you have to let it take a back seat when you can't even wipe your own bottom. Story 16. Don't focus on things you can't do anything about. Stupid people online, war, the news, people living their own lives, making their own choices, people's opinions or possible thoughts about you, regrets you have. Forget all that. Just show up for your own life with light in your heart and spread that light where you want it to go. Plant flowers where you want to see flowers. Wherever you go, try to leave it in a better state than when you found it, even if it's just picking up a single piece of trash and throwing it away properly. This is both literal and figurative. Story 17. Not advice, but something I thought of after finding out some relatives of mine are looking to move away from the farm where I spent my childhood summers. One day you will do something for the last time, and you never know when that day is going to come. Could be as trivial as leaving your favorite restaurant, only to find out that it has closed down the next time you want to go there, to something as world-shattering as finding out you spoke to a loved one for the last time yesterday. It made me think long and hard about what I value in life and all the things I have ignored or pushed ahead of me because there is always tomorrow. Except life suddenly decides to throw you another curveball, and now it is gone. Reading some of the answers here made me think it can also be expanded to things you have not done yet. Give it a try because you never know when or even if you get another shot. Story 18. Though you have no control over what happens to you, you do have power over how you respond to it. This one truly altered the way I respond to failures. I now concentrate on my strengths rather than my weaknesses. Story 19. Always keep track of something you loved. Friends, games, movies, they will be lost from us some way, someday, with how easily things become lost media these days. Me to myself. Story 20. I've worked with many doctors because of my health, but there was one doctor who told me that in order to live a very happy and healthy life, you must not only work on your physical and mental health, but also on your spiritual health. Story 21. Do not put off something you really want to do just because it will take a long time to accomplish. For example, getting a degree or learning a new skill. The time will pass regardless. And a number of years from now, you can be in the same difficult position you are in now or have a bunch of new opportunities you otherwise would not have. At the very least, you gave it a shot and will not have to regret not taking a chance. Story 22. If you are making a mistake, do not make a second one, as in stop at the stop sign if you are driving drunk, which I do not, but that is very good advice altogether. Story 23. Live your life like a roller coaster. Hold on tight, scream when necessary, and remember that the scariest drops often lead to the best views. Besides, you will laugh about it later, preferably while eating cotton candy. Story 24. Not all problems have a solution. Sometimes you just have to let it take its course and suffer the consequence. One day you will look back and realize that the problem resolved on its own. Story 25. Sometimes it's not your fault, but it's still your responsibility. This one still makes me angry even if I agree with it. But it helped me get out of my abusive marriage that I'd spent too much time in waiting for him to take responsibility for his own actions. Story 26. That you should assign priority to the people in your life based on how they make you feel, not based on who they are. If someone makes you feel bad, you give them less or none of your life. Them being your dad, brother, or mom doesn't mean they should automatically be put above someone who isn't related to you. Story 27. I didn't understand it until I actually allowed it to make sense, if that makes sense, but what it was time will heal it. Whatever it is, let time do what it does. If you're waiting on something, wanting something, going through a difficult time you feel is dragging and weighing you down, remember that it will pass, the time will pass. If you're annoyed or frustrated, even depressed over something in the future and having to wait for it, the time will go by anyway. So just do your best and let it be. Story 28. Man, the best advice I ever got was probably from my dad. I was freaking out after failing this big job interview. Fresh out of college, I thought my life was over. Dad just laughed, opened a beer, and said, "Son, don't take life so seriously." Then he took my mopey self fishing. Kind of changed how I look at things, When life goes sideways now, I try to relax and laugh it off. It doesn't always work, but it helps. Story 29. For me, focus on what you can control and let go of what you cannot, because you'll just stress yourself out over things you cannot do anything about. Just do the things that will help you achieve your goals in life. If you have this mindset, you'll be stress-free and experience less stress. Hope this helps. Story 30. Do not blame other people for the things you go through, and always work to view things positively. The reason given was that when we blame other people, we assign them the power to change things or to move on, and indirectly deny ourselves that power. Similarly, by and large, things move in the direction we are focused on, so when we are looking for the positive side of things, we tend to nudge a number of aspects in a more positive direction. And the same happens with a negative outlook. It is not a magic solution, but it does make things better and easier. Story 31. The best advice I ever got was, always carry a rubber chicken. You never know when you'll need to defuse a tense situation with a well-timed squeak. Story 32. Lean into emotional discomfort. It makes you stronger, prevents burying problems that don't really go away, and helps with communication and relationships most of the time. Story 33. I received a lot of life advice that was generally good, but the most practical and quickest change and result was to have a conversation with statements, not by asking a bunch of questions. This piece of advice made my conversations more organic and much better. Story 34. The best advice I ever got was to show up, You would be surprised how many people don't believe they can do it, so they don't go. Just show up, and you're 80% ahead of the game already. Story 35. Be kind to yourself. How do you speak to yourself? If another person said those things to you, would you want to hang around them very long? Change that inner dialogue to kindness and forgiveness. Story 36. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. This always helps me when I feel like I've let an opportunity slip by or done the wrong thing, or even just not responded to an email as quickly as I should have. You cannot go back and do it at the best time, but the second best time is still there.